Hello, everyone. It's Michelle Angelique with The Rise of a Species, Mankind, Episode 9. Today's topic is going to be about understanding lies and sex differently. I bundle those two up together because they both have some level to some degree of guilt and shame. And so when we hear lies and we hear sex, boom, there's a trigger in the subconscious. Even if we're not conscious about it, there's some level of guilt and shame. And so bringing down those blocks that get built up in the subconscious mind as we're growing up, we take it on as adults, and these become big blocks for people to be able to move forward in their own personal lives and also just in a society as a whole. Because if we see as a society as a whole, we all kind of share the same feelings, which are those feelings are of guilt and shame about the topics of lies and sex. Again, to different degrees, not all the same, but they're all on the same degree line, and we shouldn't even be on the degree line of guilt and shame. And that's what this is about. There should be no shame and no guilt when it comes to understanding lies differently and understanding sex differently, because we got them really fucked up. Both of those are on real fucked up terms for a whole lot of people. And breaking those blocks from our mind is really tough. So if we look at these two things differently, we may be able to help ourselves repair and balance out from the inside out, so that when we express ourselves in the world around us, we have a different view and a different perspective about ourselves, about lies, and about sex that are no longer burdened with shame and guilt, be it their own personal shame and guilt or shame and guilt put on us. And I'll get more into that. So let me start off right with we're gonna start off with lies first. It might take me a little bit to get through these things, because it's pretty complex talking about these things and making sure I go not off track. I want to make sure I don't get off track. So bear with me. So when we're talking about lies, what are we really talking about? When we hear the word lies, everything gets bundled up into one category. That if you say something and it's a lie, you're a liar. And if you're a liar, you're bad. And if you're bad, there's guilt and some degree of shame in being bad because there's a lie. And we all know that lying ain't good. And if you lie once, you're a sinner forever. Oh shit, you cannot lie? How about we call it something else? Because we are normal, we're human, we are mankind, and let's define these things a little bit different than just bundling everything up into a lie and feeling guilt and shame because you're told that there's guilt and shame and something to be pointed at from society because you are a liar. So we're going to look at being at lie differently. How can we do that? So because it's put all into one category, I'm going to give an example of something else that's put into a category and you can't get out of it. You can't get it out of the category because the wording is limited. So the word lie is limited. It's limited to everything is put into that category, and then everything will be bad in that category. So the example I'm going to use is food, but I'm going to use this example. Cereal grass grains. Those are grains that come from a grass that cause a negative effect to the body. Period. Drops your immune system, cause a lot of effect to the body. A lot of people don't know this, but cereal grass grains. Now, because it is a grain, all grains, they got the word pseudo grains. We shouldn't even use pseudo. It means not really a grain, but we're going to throw that motherfucker in there and call them a grain anyways, so they can just be all a bundle of bad for you grains, because a lot of people now stay away from grains, not knowing that there is a difference between the seeds. They're not all the same, even though they're all bundled up the same. So I'm going to express amaranth is not a high lectin seed. It's a powerhouse to the body, so much so as a powerhouse to the body that the Aztecs, they got this symbol right here, that was taken from history, taken from their history because it made them so powerful. It is something restorative, regenerative. It is not your common food. It's not even a superfood. It's beyond that. It was burned. Their fields were burned of amaranth of the Aztecs by their conquistadors because when the conquistadors tasted that amaranth, felt the power of that amaranth, they took away that amaranth and made it punishable by death if they ever grew it, spoke of it, or ate it. That's how powerful that grain was. So if we put all the grains together and we're condemning all the grains, well, shit, it's never going to get a break. And so we, mankind, never get a break because we're all liars. We're all in that category. And you grow up as a kid, you're like, oh, I'm a bad person because I lied. Let's define it. Let's speak about it differently. Let's make that limited word unlimited. Let's break the limits to that word. Let's understand it differently. So, because the word lying or liar is limited, we need to go into we need to expand and understand that when we express something and we're not genuine to ourselves, we are causing an effect to an emotion to someone else. And so that, I'm going to use the word lie so we understand what I'm talking about. But when we lie that causes an emotional effect that's detrimental to someone else, then we are not being genuine to ourselves. We're not lying. We are becoming non-genuine to ourselves, and so that we are then non-genuine to others. We're not authentic. As Bruce Lee used to say, you got to become authentic. You got to be true in the words that you use to express yourself, no matter how much it may hurt someone else. And I don't mean go hurt everybody by telling them their truth, that they got a big nose and this. That's not the kind of truth I'm talking about. I'm talking about when we have to take responsibility to be honest about a situation or a circumstance, then we are honest about that truth and express it. And then we are genuine, then it will not cause and ricochet into another problem that leads into another problem, like a domino effect. We stop that domino effect right there. The pieces fall right there. And we accept responsibility and we become honest and authentic to those that we speak to. So then we are not lying. We're teaching our children to become genuine and authentic. And so then we never have to say, are you lying? Are you being a liar? We ask, are you being genuine? Are you being authentic? Are you authentic to yourself? And when we teach our kids this way, they won't grow up thinking that they're liars. They're like, am I? I will question myself. I'll take that responsibility onto myself as a child and learn that I must be genuine to myself so that I don't hurt those in front of me. And those domino pieces don't fall forward more and more because I lacked the integrity to be genuine. That's being honest to the self so that we can then be honest to others. So that is not lying anymore. It's learning to become genuine. The other category of what it is to lie, again, I say the word so we understand what I'm talking about, is when we are forced to protect the greater good, a statement must be said to create that protection, that guard. Is it a lie or is it a defense to protect the greater good? Not my own personal interest, the greater good of the ones involved, to all involved. Is it necessary to say what needs to be said to protect and defend because of the circumstances that are pressed upon the individual or individuals? I'm going to give an example of what I mean by that. So right now I'm expressing that there's two different ways to understand the word lie or lying or being a liar. So we can remove guilt and shame if we understand that word differently. So if we are not being authentic to ourselves, that word don't even exist. We then just got to question ourselves. And then we're no longer lying. Are we being genuine? Are we being authentic? And if we're not, we got to fix our shit. And we learn how to do this by becoming personally responsible for ourselves and our actions. The other is, do I have to say something? Do I forcibly have to say something to protect the greater good? then I must protect the greater good because of the circumstances. Is that a liar, or is that someone who must defend the greater good, be it their children, be it their family, be it their loved ones, be it their neighbors, be it an individual they don't even know? That is something that everybody has to choose for themselves, and they will take it, that information that I just said, onto themselves, depending on how they view life, is how they're going to see that. But this is how I have to teach my children to understand the differences between you're a liar because you lied once, should people always be a sinner? Because even if we're not in religion, we got that buried in the back of our minds that sinning, being bad, lying, might as well just be bad. I mean, all of that is garbage. All of that is garbage information from all religions that state that. I say that and I defend that. I mean that. Garbage. That means as you're born, you're a sinner. You know, I've said that in other podcasts that just being born in religions will tell you you're a sinner because you were born, born sinner. Then how can we progress if we're never going to be something that's set so high above that just being born puts you at a negative? Well, sex and lies and sex do the same thing. We're put into that, they have been manipulated to do the same thing. So let's break this manipulation by having a little more understanding about what's really going on. And not use those words, not use the word lying to our children or to others around us. Use other words to define and make a difference, and to understand why somebody would have to say what they say. So going back to having to protect the greater good, making a statement that we wouldn't normally say, but that if it's not said, then the greater good is not protected. When I watched a movie as a little kid, it really impacted me. I watched a lot of movies. That's not what I wanted to start. I wanted to say a specific movie that I watched when I was a little kid impacted me, and it stayed with me forever. I don't remember the name of the movie. I just remember the black and white. I just remember the scene, and I remember the emotion that I carried to this day about that movie. And it was about an old lady that lived in this village in Germany, in Nazi Germany. And the soldiers came and knocked on this old woman's house. And everyone knew that that old woman in that village never lied, because she was of high integrity and never had to lie. Just was always genuine. So if you always got to be, not always got to be, let me correct my language. If the circumstances are never forced upon to have to not be genuine, not say what is obvious, not be what we know as truthful, then there is no reason but to always be genuine. Always be genuine. Always be authentic. And we can teach our children to be this way. And that's how we live in peace and in harmony, like this old woman, right? Peace and harmony within our world around us. But because circumstances were, this pressure was put on this old woman to say, if she was harboring Jews in her home, to say yes or no, this pressure now is put on this genuine, authentic woman to have to tell the truth. So there is a system that uses that type of authority, knowing that the greater good will be harmed. The greater good will be harmed if this lady sticks to her authenticity. If this lady stays genuine, because she is a genuine lady, right? So that's why she has so much respect in that town, that this old woman will never lie. So one of the soldiers says, this old woman will never lie. That woman in the movie said, there are no Jews in my home. There is no one here. And I'm watching it as a little kid and I'm trying to figure out, but she never lies and she's lying and there's somebody in her house. And the soldier ends up saying, if this woman says there is no one here, there is no one here. And they didn't go in and ransack the house like they ransacked all the other houses in the movie, right? The soldiers. And that stayed with me forever. Stayed with me forever. I was like, how can I tell the difference between lying is good and lying is bad? And this lady lied and she saved this man's life, this Jew's life. And because of that, it becomes mixed feelings and emotions when you're a child. You don't know what is right and what is wrong when it comes to lying. When do I lie? When do I not lie? Am I a good person for lying? Am I a bad person for lying? So we carry that confusing ball of shit as grown-ups. Believe it or not. Think of it or not. Conscious of it or not. It is in the subconscious because the shit has been drilled into our minds since we've been little as adults in our society, and nobody else is saying how to break that. How do we relook at this? How do we rethink this? So understanding that living genuinely and being authentic to yourself and being honest to yourself makes you honest to others, and there's no reason why not to be until pressure comes on to protect and defend the greater good, not of personal interest, but of all in concern of others. Then the choice must be made to protect that greater good. And that's the kind of things that we're seeing today, especially today on a global scale. People are being forced to get vaccinated, and we know that vaccination, a lot of us know, that vaccination is made by a biotechnology company, and there's no medicine in it. There's technology in it. And so if there's live technology in a vaccine and we're being told that you got to take it and for the greater good of everyone else in concern, well, it's a play. It's a play. So our psychology says I got to do the right thing for the greater good of everyone. But there's a question because there's contradiction in there. So if it's medicine, how is it biotechnology and not medicine? What are we talking about here? So if it's questionable and it's a contradiction that must be questioned, then we have to put a pause to that. We have to put a pause to that. So, but now we're talking about the reverse psychology of do the right thing for the greater good of everyone in concern. Take this shot. Take this technological shot that can be programmed and connected from an outside source and affected your inside source. That can mess with your DNA, override your programming. Nobody's questioning right there because we all want to do the right thing for the greater good. So it's a reverse psychology of doing the right thing for the greater good. And so when we must say something that we would not typically say, it is called a lie. Are we a bad person for protecting the greater good of everyone in concern? Like that old lady who protected life or lives, whoever she had to protect, to say, there is no one in my house, there are no Jews in my house. Are you feeling what I'm saying? Do we feel guilt and shame for that? Or do we know that we did the right thing for the greater good in concern? Without any question, without any contradiction. It is not okay to choose people, like in Nazi Germany, and annihilate them because you don't like them. There's no question about that. You can't do that to anything, to anyone. And so there is a question when we're talking about technology, biotechnology. Bio means alive. Live technology, thinking technology, going into the body and saying it's for the greater good of everyone concerned. So everything has a reverse role. Everything can have a reverse role. And so when it comes to lying, we must understand and we must look at this deeply. If the greater good in concern needs to be protected, be it your children, your family, your loved ones, those around you, you must say something that you know is not true, but it protects and defends them against something that is questionable, that is a contradiction, then it must be done. And there is no shame in that, and there's no guilt in that. But yet there's shame and guilt for that put on all of our minds. And we must break that. We must break that. And those walls come down when we understand that. Just like that. And so when we learn to become authentic and genuine to ourselves, and then that flows onto others, that domino effect never happens because we catch it right there. We are responsible for the words that we say. We know that the emotions can be affected by the words that we say. So it's not okay to cheat on someone, on your spouse, or someone you're in a relationship with, and lie and be with somebody else at the same time, because it will affect them on an emotional level. It will hurt them to a degree where their emotion is affected, and we're not being genuine with our spouse or our loved one. And I'm using this as an example because then, because of that lack of authenticity, of being genuine to ourselves, we then pass on a domino effect into hurting another individual because we don't want to recognize that what we're doing is incorrect. And then we don't want to know why it's incorrect because there's usually a deeper reason why that's done. Be it that we have personal insecurities and need more love and affection by others because our insecurity of ourselves is so low that one person is not enough. You know, if you're going to be with multiple people, then let your spouse know, hey, this is me. This is how I am. Then you're genuine. Then you're authentic. And then the other person gets to choose if they want to be in that relationship or not. So it doesn't mean you can't be who you are. It means who you are must be genuine and authentic to the ones that you cause an effect to on an emotional level. And that's something we should never do, is hurt others on an emotional scale and level, because it will ricochet into something worse in the future. And then it'll just keep, it's like a domino effect, and then that person goes and affects the next person and the next person and the next person. So at some point we have to recognize that we are that domino, and we can stop that cause and effect by being honest right here. And either we're accepted for who we are or we're not. But the fact is that we accept ourselves for who we are, and that's enough. And you'll feel it is enough because you will understand yourself when you dig deep inside and face yourself. And I talk about this for other people who have not seen my other episodes, from my introduction all the way up to here to episode 9. Go in, look at them in a series, and you'll understand what I'm talking about when we have to learn to become honest to ourselves, face ourselves, walk through our own fire. It will balance an individual out to the point where how we feel on the inside is how we project on the outside. And that's how all of life is. And we've just never been taught that what happens on the interior, our emotions are our navigation system. And if our emotions are all over the place, off of center line, our emotions will take us through our world, through our reality, in that mess, in that chaos. And we can't get that. We're trying to look for that order. We're trying to look for that balance within. Start looking on the emotions, because the emotions are as important as the physicality, if not more important. Because the mind, which is the soul, is connected to this physicality. And in this physicality, we have to communicate and live amongst other people, other physical people, right? But if our emotions are off center, and our emotions are our navigation system, and we're affecting each other through our emotion, then we don't recognize that we're like 3-year-olds driving Ferraris, crashing all over the place. And so it's very important that we recognize that when we're not authentic in what we say to others, because we're not being genuine to ourselves, not being honest to ourselves, we don't want to face ourselves, and we don't do that to others, it creates this domino effect, this ricochet effect, these Ferraris crashing, these 3-year-olds driving Ferraris crashing into one another. Just our relationships are like this, we're just like, bah, bah, bah. Why don't you understand? No, why don't I understand me? And this is what this is about. This is about trying to understand us as an individual, as an independent, as a solo person. How do we fix this right here so that we can make all this out here more balanced? Because that's what we all want. We're all looking for balance. Not a one of us is not. We may not say it, but that's what we all look for and strive for in every faction of our lives, be it our relationships, our personal relationships, our family relationships, our business, our wealth, our health. We're all looking for balance. And it's always there. And we just have to know how to start looking inward. And this is what I do. I help to understand what the inside work is all about so we get this outside work fixing. We always told go deep inside. Well, where the fuck is that? Where is it? We hear it in our words. We see it in our actions. So in our actions and our words, when they're off center, meaning that they don't match, what I say is not what I do, and what I do is not what I say, we got a contradiction within ourselves, and we got to fix that. Again, look at my other episodes if you want to understand better what I mean. So, wrapping up lies, let's go back real quick. It is, are we genuine? Are we being genuine to ourselves when we're speaking to others about something, about a relationship? Are we being honest to ourselves? Let me use that word. Are we being honest to ourselves? Not am I a liar. It's am I being honest with myself that I can be honest with that person? We cannot be honest to others if we don't know how to be truthful and honest to ourselves about how we feel about something. And usually when we feel about something, let me give an example. When we say, I don't want to think about that shit right now, it's because there's some shit in there that got to get looked at. It got to be dropped on the table, analyzed, mulled over and says, what do I got right here? What the fuck am I looking at right here? What emotion have I been hiding from myself that I don't want to look at? That emotion or that circumstance, until it gets fixed, there's always going to be a block, and the words that come out are never going to be fucking genuine. Never. You're not being genuine to yourself because you don't want to face shit. So if you catch yourself not wanting to think about something, it's because there's an emotion in there that's creating a block, and you will cause a block and an effect to others. That is not being genuine. So that's part of the work on how to become genuine with ourselves. That's how we learn to become more truthful and honest with ourselves so that we don't have to go and lie to somebody else to cover something up. Because the real cover up is the stuff we got inside that we're hiding from ourselves that nobody else knows about. But we got to be the ones to take responsibility, throw that motherfucker on the table, and look at it. Just look at it. There's a lot of crying going on, a lot of pain, a lot of anguish that goes on through that. And that's why we don't want to look at it. But it must be done. It must be done. And there's this big sense of relief after that cry, I'll tell you. And there's a new clarity that comes and a new person that rises from within and expresses now on the outside world. So when we communicate different because we got now this center of peace that we didn't have before. And that's how we find it. And money can't buy you what I'm talking about. Money cannot buy you what I'm talking about. Only personal development and wanting to look within. So lies only if pressure is put on to protect the greater good. It's not that you lie. It's that you're forced not to be honest to protect the greater good. And the other is if it causes an emotional effect to something else or someone else, we must be genuine. We must take that responsibility to be genuine with ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, to be able to be honest to someone else, because we do not want to create a ricochet effect, a domino effect that will continue on and others will keep hurting others because we hurt people when we're not genuine to ourselves, to be genuine with them. So I encourage you not to use the words, you are a liar. Are you being genuine with me? Are you genuine to yourself that you can be genuine with me? And the other is, please don't push me to have to protect the greater good because I don't want to have to say something that is not authentic to myself to protect it. But unfortunately in society, that does happen. And we have to now make the decision. Do we protect the greater good? Do not feel guilt or shame for protecting the greater good of all in concern. And that removes that guilt and that shame. And the other, we are not sinful because we lie. It's becoming that genuine person is honorable. And so there's no sin in that honor. There's no sin in that honor. So that removes all guilt and shame from that damn word, a liar or lying. Remove that word. Remove it from the textbook of your mind and find a new way to express so that those blocks of guilt and shame are shattered. Now, when I'm going to move over to sex. What is it really? And why is it so damn taboo? Why is it so taboo when it's so damn good? Y'all know what I mean when I say that. But what I mean by that is there's a lot of people hurt out there by sex. I'm one of those people. Molestation, since I can remember. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm just expressing that I understand. I understand the genuine effect and feeling of fear as a child. You grow up with that as a grown up, and it becomes your looking glass of how you see life and how you judge everything around you, how you evaluate everything around you and everyone around you. And that must be broken down because not everyone is to blame for circumstances that happens to us when we're little. And I mean that in all levels and all degrees of all different types of things, not just molestation. The reason we have to remove blocks from within ourselves and find forgiveness in ourselves is because we can't force someone to change, but we can change within by what's come to change us. We can change, and that's all we do have control over. I don't want to see this is what I mean. I'm about to go take this into a different direction because there's so many avenues to take the word sex, into. Let me get back on track. What is it really? What is sex really, and why is it taboo? I put in the part about molestation because I don't want. There's so many people molested out there, male and female, that I know this will hit a nerve when I'm talking about it, and they'll look at it as a completely different way than what I'm going to try to express right here from this part that I'm trying to express. Like I said, there's many ways to express sex, but I'm just going to talk about the part where guilt and shame come in as a society, how that's put into our subconscious, how we can start removing it by viewing it differently. So once we've gotten past the molestation and the pains of rapes and the cruelty that's done with sex, there's a part that we have to look at sex. It's when it's not used in that way, is something very special, something very special, something very powerful. And it's hard to see when the body has gone through so much pain through it because of sex for so many. So I'm going to use another analogy to we can try to break the perception of sex down a little bit for those who might be looking at this or hearing this and they're irritated. And I haven't even said anything yet. I haven't said anything about sex yet. Why it's so powerful and positive. Why it's so powerful and positive. But yet we've been made to feel that it's something so bad because it's come to the encounter of many people as something bad. So this expression is, I'm going to use water. Water is something very neutral, as sex is. It's very neutral. It's not here to kill. It's not there to do something to you. It's just there, just like water. Sex just like water. It's just there. It's neutral. If you take water and you make things grow with it, it's powerful. If you take water and you start killing and drowning individuals in it, then it's negative. But the water is not negative at all. The mind that's using the water, the mind behind the water that's using the water in that bad way is what needs to be looked at. That mind, that negative mind that negative soul, that negative being, the negative individual is what needs to be looked at, not the water. And so sex is not the culprit, it's not the bad guy. It's how sex has been used through millennia up until this day has been looked at and has been put upon the minds of individuals and the bodies of individuals in a very negative way. Not for everybody, but for a huge majority. So I'm going to talk about it from a positive because it's been used through the negative, through religion, households that even are not religious. It's so negative what has been done to children and sex that these children become adults with a negative perception and perspective about sex, and it takes a very long time to heal from that. Sex, what it really is a creative energy, and it's been turned into something taboo, something that we cannot touch and we should not talk about because it is the greatest force that we have. Sex is an electromagnetic force that's generated from friction. And that friction creates a current. And that current creates a magnetic field. And because we are electric, it creates an electric magnetic field. And that friction and that movement and that charge is projected. And it takes effect into the field. But we don't use our mind to push that projection because we are not conscious that our soul is connected to our sex. Because the mind, I don't know if you've ever heard of mindless sex, means sex with no mind behind it. So if the mind is not knowing what sex is, then sex would just be whatever we were taught it is. But since it's so taboo, very few mentionings of what it is mentioned. And because so many people are hurt or disgusted by it, it's not a topic usually spoken about. So this electromagnetic charge that's generated, that friction, that motion, builds up an extreme charge, an extreme power, an extreme force of energy, and it can be projected through the mind and the heart of the individual to make great change in physicality. So if we are manifestors of the mind into physicality, sex is an amplifier of that projection. And not only can we create life, physicality from sex, the day we stop creating physicality from sex is the day we're going to recognize that we just lost a great power. We just lost a great ability to generate life, beautiful life at that. The reason the life that's coming out now is so sickly and so battered is because of all the toxicity that has been put on mankind to hate itself, to be broken, to be less than what it can authentically be, genuinely be, originally be. That we blame this and we blame that and we blame all the others instead of recognizing, people even blame God, for goodness sakes. We are not recognizing how we are made, the nutrients that we need, the toxicities that are around us. We don't recognize the toxicities that are around us that will transform that life into something unhealthy or not well. And I don't say this to hurt or offend anybody who has children with disabilities or capabilities that are disabled in any way. It's how much has to happen to our species, mankind, for us to recognize where this is coming from. Because it's not humane where it's coming from. It's not just big business. It's a literal species against our species that is depleting us, and to the point we're not even going to be able to birth men or women. We have so much toxicity in our bodies, in our environment, that most women are to the point where they're not fertile, nor men. To if this keeps going on, which it is, we're becoming less and less capable of having children. And a lot of you might say, who wants children in this fucked up world? Well, let's fix this fucked up world. That's what this is about. We gotta fix this shit, turn this motherfucker around. You can't just say, well, it just is what it is and it's just gonna keep on going. Fucking stop this motherfucking train from moving in this direction of breaking our species down. And so, if we want to learn about how sex is something that is our greatest power, so that we can focus and create in this physicality with true feelings of love and affection for the one that we're with, those are things that we got to get back to. Those are the things that we got to start honing in on. But we can't love somebody else unless we know how to love ourselves. That's the most important thing. Been on a 4-year, I don't know what to call it, growth experience where I just been alone for 4 years with no other partner. And in that, I had 4 years to learn about who am I? How do I work? What are my words that are coming out? What are the thoughts that I have? How do I make them align? How do I become a genuine person to myself? And the better I became, the better I know now that I am to be able to be with another person and not cause harm to that individual because of all the unbalanced, disconnected, emotional train wreck that I was. But not because I went out of my way to be this. It's because this is how we're grown and bred into these types of environments. No matter how rich or how poor we are, we all got the same emotional fuckery going on, and that is we're not balanced because we are not cohesive. Our words don't match what we think, and what we think is not what we feel, and they got to line up so that we can get that magnetic order to project forward and not break others down. Not break others down. We ridicule the shit out of everybody, but in reality, it's the shit we gotta ridicule and judge within ourselves. I talk about this podcast after podcast because it's always gonna fall back. It's always one of my podcasts is always gonna relate to the other in some way. So I will always be repetitive because it is about this. This is what it is about. That all these things are interconnected into our lives, even if it's lies and sex, that we got to break these walls down that we have built up so we can move freely in our world. I'm going to put in the what is in the comments on the bottom where you guys can see a little Taoist information about the Tao have something called the way, and that's what it means, the way, the Tao. And it's from China, and it's just an old way, very ancient way of how to understand and find balance in life. Again, I said I am not religious. I am still not religious, but where I see wisdom, doesn't matter where it comes from. All religions have some vein of wisdom, except they've just become corporations, they become industry. But it's important that we take that wisdom, that knowledge, and find the same main vein to go down. And that is a way just to be balanced within the self, so all can be balanced around us. And in there's a gentleman named Mantak Chia I'll be putting in there to give a better understanding about sex. He does a very good job. It's quite comical. I don't know if it's his accent. Because it's so funny. He says, and you twist here, and you pull there, and you lick here, and you shimmy there, and with his accent, it's just great. So it's really refreshing to be able to listen to somebody talk about sex, how sex affects the glands, how the glands affect the energy, how the energy affects the field. And he won't talk about it the way I do about the field. And I'm just expressing how you're able to hear what he says. And it's full of wisdom of how men and women have this great potential, how we have this electric charge through our body, and how to access that charge. And he, like I said, he won't talk about it being your great power and how I'm talking about the mind, but he will talk about how all these things interconnect. And maybe in other podcasts we'll talk more deeply about sex, but it's hard to do it when I'm just talking alone. Uh, I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. They're, like I said, very entertaining. If you have 18-year-olds, when my kids become of age, I want to make sure that I buy them the series of Mantak Chia so they understand what sex is about, how it works, and it's not something to be afraid of. It's something encouraging. It's something exciting. It's something, I mean, we all know we love it. We all know we love it. Well, I said a lot of us know we love it. We'll put it that way. And there's much health benefit in it. So it's not just about having sex and making kids, it's literally rejuvenating to the body, in our organs. It's manifesting in reality. It's all of these different things that are our creative abilities. It's amplifying, projecting thought, be what we want to succeed in, what we want to make grow, what we want to make healthy, what we want to make better. We got to put our minds behind the projection of sex while we're actually having sex. So I want to leave that at that. I won't get any more deeper into it. But now understanding lies and sex and seeing them from two different perspectives, we're no longer confined into the box that lies and sex have been put into, of guilt and shame. Now we understand taking responsibility, doing and protecting the greater good, and sex as powerful amplifier, rejuvenator, creator, manifester, projector. And so, different ways, different perspectives, new thought in the mind to break down and shatter the old that we've been set up with. This is the rise of a species, mankind, truth and integrity warrior. Man will always rise. Never forget it. Be well.